How you guys doing?
Good.
Nice. These guys were out in the run this morning. So boys, starting out here, Ryan, we noticed that you're going a little au natural there, going a little beard. You made a little change, moved down from Mammoth, a little more warmer weather down in Tucson. Talk us a little bit through your transition from Mammoth training to Tucson.
Yeah, so this fall we decided to pack up, and we're actually in Flagstaff.
I'm sorry.
Which is
Yeah.
close enough, but it's a little bit higher. It's actually really cold up there, though, sometimes. But they get way less snow than Mammoth, so we've been enjoying the warmer weather up there, and yeah, it's been a fun change for us.
Now, and Ryan, what people don't realize is growing up, you were a miler. That was your thing. You're going to be the best miler around. Making that transition from a miler now to a marathoner, take us through the mindset and take us through what it took to get there.
Well, it was a long process getting there. We could be here for an hour talking about that. But I'd say probably the biggest turning point for me was where I was able to just get over the pride of being a miler, because I was really into trying to be fast and trying to break 4 minutes when I was in high school. And there's a part of me that's always like, I'm not going to let anyone tell me I'm not fast enough to be a miler. And it's kind of like the Prefontaine movie. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but, I was like, seen that movie way too many times. I was like, I'm not going to let anyone say I'm not fast enough, And finally when I got over the pride of that and I got old enough to, like, look at my real abilities and take a good, honest look at myself and how God created me, I was like, well, I'm not fast enough to close with these guys in the mile or in the 5K or even in the 10K. And I just love doing long distance stuff, and God was giving me glimpses of that as I was training, and eventually I got to a point to where I was like, all right, it's okay if I'm not fast enough for the mile. And then I moved up to something that I was naturally suited to do, and been loving the marathon ever since.
And Josh, your background, you were more of a soccer player, right? And really fell into running.
Yeah, soccer was my main deal, and I was playing year-round by the age of 10 here in San Diego, and played club soccer with Hotspurs, and that was my deal. I wanted to be a World Cup soccer player. My coach, Fernando Ruiz, had competed at the highest level globally, and he planted that seed, and that's what I wanted to do. And I owe a lot of my cardiovascular base, most of my cardiovascular base, to soccer. I mean, he ran it like a pro team. We ran 2.5 miles before practice, and we practiced, and then for 2 hours, and then we ran sprints at the end. And this was after my cross-country practice that I ran at school. I wanted to play football, and my dad said, dude, you're 5 feet and 98 pounds. You're going to be killed. And I'm like, no, Dad, let me play. He's like, yeah, hit puberty first, dude. And so he wouldn't let me go out for football. And I'm like, I guess I'll run cross-country, but I wouldn't wear the cross-country shorts. I wore...
Too tight?
Too short. It was like Umbros,
Yeah.
I raced in Umbros all the way through. Even my freshman year back at Liberty, I was still wearing the pseudo long straight cut, because it was just like I didn't want to wear the girly shorts. So,
exactly.
But eventually, I found that running was like Ryan said. I knew this is the gifts that God gave me, and I ran some fast times my senior year in high school. For me, I ran a 4:02, 8:58, 1500. 3,000 double up at Mount Sac, and I was a 35-mile-a-week soccer player, and I was like, well, maybe if I focused on this thing, it could be pretty good.
So along those lines, for people out there who have kids, having them not so much focus on running when they're younger, but maybe focus on soccer where they're running on the grass, they're doing stuff on soft surfaces, so they're not beating themselves up too early, is not a bad thing.
Yeah, and I think, we're all, as distance athletes, endurance athletes, we're all a little bit compulsive, obsessive, and you have kids. My wife's expecting our first baby boy next month, probably. It's March 3rd's due date, so yes, thank you. And everyone's like, so is he going to be a runner? I'm like, no, NFL punter. I'm like, we're going to teach him, because if he gets touched, it's a penalty. And he doesn't have to go and run all these miles and hurt so bad. But
long snapper too.
That's huge. Full ride. They have lots of scholarships for football.
Exactly.
And it's a
48-year career.
Yeah. You're in the league forever. Great NFL pension. We got his whole life planned out. So, but I think it is good not to force them into running. I mean, obviously, you guys are super active. They're going to want to do what mom and dad do, and it's something you want to introduce them to, expose them to, but I'm glad that I was a soccer player my whole life, because Now I'm running 140, 150 mile a week, and it's fun. I still really enjoy it. I'm not a lot of guys that were, running 120 miles a week as a freshman in college. They're not running around anymore.
Exactly. And speaking of somebody who's running around a lot still, Dean Karnazes. So, Dean, I mean, you did a lot of sports when you were younger, and the whole running thing for you really was when you had your birthday. All of a sudden, you realized that you needed to change your life, and running was the mechanism to change your life.
Well, I do have a dark secret. I did start out like these guys. I mean, I ran a 4:55 mile at Mount Sac when I was in 7th grade.
Ooh.
And it went downhill from there because that was my fastest mile ever. I just got slower and slower, so I kept going further and further. But, yeah, some of you read my book. That's kind of the story. I mean, I blame my running career on bad tequila. I walked out of a bar on my 30th birthday and decided, cold turkey, I'm going to run 30 miles tonight to kind of take back my life. And it wasn't a pretty 30 miles. There was some chafing and some blistering where the sun don't shine, but made it from there, and it just got worse and worse at that point.
And being a husband who has to call his wife in the morning when he hasn't returned home all night, how did that go?
Well, she was very concerned, and she said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine. No worries. I just need a ride home." She said, "Yeah, you've never been out like that all night. No questions asked. Where you at?" And I said, "I'm down at 7-Eleven." She's like, "You mean the 7-Eleven right down the street?" And I said, "No, the 7-Eleven in Half Moon Bay, 30 miles away." And she flipped out. She said, "How did you get there?" And I said, "I ran." I mean, she said, "From where?" I said, "I walked out of that bar after you left, and I ran here." And she said, "You just hold tight. You don't sound very stable. I'll be right down."
But, Dean, for you, you've mechanically, when people look at you, the guy is perfect. And for someone to run 50 marathons in 50 days in 50 states, how did you build to that level where you could run that far, that consistently, and stay injury-free?
Well, I've got good biomechanics. I mean, my alignment's good. I don't pronate or supinate. I mean, I've had my foot strike kind of analyzed, and natural midfoot striker, all that stuff that's kind of in vogue now. The forward lane, the shorter foot turnover. But you can't train for having good biomechanics, right? They say the best things you can do as a long distance runner is choose your parents well. Yeah. I'm 100% Greek, and my dad, my crazy dad, he always insists we're from the same village as Phidippides, the original Greek marathon. I always tell him, "Dad, we grew up in LA. I mean, what village are we from here?" I'm third generation American. But yeah, good biomechanics has helped me a lot, and that's just hereditary.
Okay. Hey, and Ryan, for you, there was, we know the great Ryan Hall now, but there was some points during your collegiate career where there were some downtimes. You weren't quite sure if you were going to continue as a runner. You left school for a while. And take us through that process of questioning yourself and deciding that I need to rededicate.
Yeah, I mean, I think any of us who have run for any number of years know that it's not all good magical runs. We're just floating around all the time. And I had really high expectations going into college after a pretty successful high school career. And in college, I was just suffering. Like, I was just getting worse and worse, and I was seeing a lot of my dreams shattering, and running was who I was. It was like totally like my identity. When I woke up in the morning, is the first thing I thought about. Like how I felt about myself was directly correlated to my race performances. So it was great in high school and everything's going well, but then when I was experiencing years of struggle and getting last place in races, all of a sudden I wasn't looking at myself in a very good light. And it kind of led to like depression and just struggling. So I took a quarter away from Stanford, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, if I was going to come back or if I was going to quit running altogether. I didn't even want to run anymore. But it was one of those times where I had to go back to the vision of why did I start running in the first place. And I ran in the first place because I felt like God had given me a gift to do it, and because I loved it, and to help other people through it. And I knew I hadn't accomplished the point of why I began to run in the first place. And so I really went back to that vision and said, okay, well, I have to keep running even though I really don't want to. But I have to do it in a different way. And I had to see myself apart from running. Like, I was Ryan and I was good because because we're all like creating God's image, and that's what makes us special, and that's what makes us who we are, and not our race performances. So I had to kind of separate the two, and when I was able to do that and go back to Stanford, it really transformed how I ran, and I started having a lot more fun in my running. I started running a lot better.
And like you said, you were a miler and eventually became a marathoner. When you had to step up from 5K, 10K to half marathon, how did you change your training? Did it change a lot?
You know, I've always been an overtrainer.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I need a coach to hold me back. And that's something I've been continuing to learn throughout my career. Like, I think everyone is a unique case. You know, not everyone tends to overtrain. Some people need someone to help get them out the door or whatever. I've always been very intrinsically motivated, and I need someone to hold me back. So, you know, as a 5K runner, as a miler in high school, I was running like 100 miles a week. My first year of running, I was averaging like 40 miles a week, and then I went to 60 my next year, and then 70, and then 100 my senior year of high school. So I've been running a lot for a long time, and I think that's really helped me get that base mileage that a lot of those Kenyan guys have. Like, I've gotten to go to Africa. Josh was just over there this last year, and you see little tiny kids, and they'll go out and they'll start running with you when you're out just running on the streets, because their base level of fitness is way up here. Like, compared to the States, and it's fun for them. They love it. That's like going to Disneyland. It's going for a run for them. And they have this huge volume behind them, you know? Whereas in the States, like, our kids typically just aren't that active. So anyways, they helped me develop this huge volume. So I actually didn't have to increase my training a whole lot going into marathon training. I had to do obviously some longer, harder runs, but my overall volume has pretty much stayed the same.
And I know that for a lot of people out here who, as they step up from 5K to 10K to half marathon, you tend to add that volume, but sometimes you forget about the speed. And moving up to half marathon, how did you maintain speed at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's really transformed about the marathon in the last couple of years. I mean, guys are able to average 4:45 per mile for a marathon now. And to do that, like, I can't run like 140 miles a week and still have the turnover necessary to run that quick. So if you want to be fast, you have to run fast workouts. And if you want to run fast workouts, I can't do that and still be putting in a ton of just volume, just bland miles where I'm just out there just running. So all this stuff I do is all based around my workouts and trying to hit really big, like 15-mile tempo runs where I'm going hard the whole time. And I'm trying to run 5-minute pace at 7,000 feet on hilly courses. But my other days, I'm going out and jogging 45 minutes, and that's it, or maybe I'll go out a couple times, but I'm not out there running 20 miles on my easy days.
Nice. And Josh, when you moved up to the marathon, and I remember rock and roll, God, what was that, 99?
99.
99 rock and roll. You were in there just to pace a buddy. Brian Culley was trying to qualify for the trials. And I don't think you were thinking you were going to qualify for trials. I don't think you were even thinking you were going to do the whole race.
Yeah, that was, I graduated school in 98 and came back here had thought about going to grad school and kind of finding a way that I could still continue to train and do what I love. And then I found out that people just train and have jobs, and you just try and make it work that way. So I came back here and was training for 5 and 10,000 on the track. And like you said, Brian was getting ready, and he had a training partner that had gotten injured. And I was like, well, I ran La Jolla half for some strength work, and I was like, Brian, I'll help you through 17 miles. And I'd been, it's always that seed in the back of your head, like maybe there's a chance I'm going to go the distance here. And in 97, I had ran a 50-mile trail race and had gone from like a half marathon to a 50-mile trail race back to the track, and then I was still on the track here, and I was thinking the marathon might be the way, like for me eventually. And got in the race and had some stomach problems at mile 9, and I was a first-time coffee drinker. That was like the second day I'd ever drank coffee before a race, and it came back to bite me at mile 9. But I just stayed the course. I caught back up to Cully like around mile 15, and we were trying to hit 5:20s because that was he wanted to run 2:20, 2:22, and I was like, hey, you're doing good. And then he started to fall off, and he's like, dude, if you want to just keep going. I felt good, and I was able to finish. I ran 2:19.58 there, and I was running about 75, 80 miles a week, and I was trashed for like a month. Like my calves, I couldn't walk. I was just like, oh man, this is horrible. But I qualified for my first trials there, so it was kind of a indoctrination by fire, a quick, just, hey, now I guess you're a marathoner. I was qualified for the trials, so from that point on.
And how have you maintained the speed to go along with that? Because, since 99, we're talking a lot of years doing a lot of miles.
Yeah, I think, it's just what Ryan said. It's like you have to hit the workouts. The formula is hard, easy, hard, easy. You can't go hard all the days or you're just going to end up on the shelf. And you have to really focus on hitting those key workouts.
Right.
The intervals on Tuesday, it's interval, tempo, long run is sort of the formula, the 3 workouts a week we run. And Tuesday's interval, Thursday or Fridays, the longer tempo where you're trying to dial in that race pace. And then the long run on Sunday, we're trying to hit those workouts and run really quality sessions. For me, I was fortunate to get in Dr. Rosa's program in 2000 and sort of learn the Kenyan formula. And I've overtrained at times like Ryan where they're kind of wired the same way. If left unchecked, I might be running 180 miles in the mountains, and go, whoops, sorry, and I've done that sort of volume before. But I think the focus is you have to be able to really nail those workouts, nail those speed sessions. I mean, even before a couple weeks ago, we're running 420 for mile repeats up at 4,700 feet in Round Valley, just off of Mammoth. So we're still running the 65-second quarter kind of repeats, and we're still doing the 400 repeats where we're running 62 and 63 seconds just to keep the legs firing. And I was getting ready to run a race where I was trying to average 5:15 a mile for 31 miles. So it's being able to hit those faster times really makes you get comfortable at your race pace.
Now, Dean, because you've run so much and you've run with a lot of age group folks, people run along with you while you're doing your runs, and when you ran from San Diego to Long Beach, and you've run down the coast, you end up running with a lot of other people. What do you find maybe typical mistakes you see runners make? Average runners.
I think most people don't set their expectations high enough. So especially when it comes to distance, when I first heard of a 50-mile race, I thought, hold it, that's impossible. A human being cannot run 50 miles nonstop, and I got to try it. So, I loaded up on my base miles, as these guys have talked about, not quite so much on my speed, and I ran this 50-mile race, and it almost killed me. I couldn't believe it. I'm in the finishing tent, cramping like crazy, just trying to stay coherent, and these guys are high-fiving, say, we qualified. I'm like, for what, the insane asylum? And they said, no, there's this race called the Western States 100-mile endurance run. It's 100 miles through the mountains. And I said, hold it, how many days does it take? And people say, no, we try to finish it under 24 hours. And I said, a human being cannot run 100 miles nonstop. That's impossible. And next year I did the Western States the first time ever, and I was just blown away. So I think we're better. The guy who is actually the race director for the Leadville Trail 100, he has this saying, we're better than we think we are, and we can go further than we think we can. And I think that's certainly the case.
So, Dean, we know about the 50 marathons in 50 days. We know about the different things that you've done. I'm guessing that you've got something up your sleeves that you can share with this very intimate audience, because nobody's going to tell anybody. What's the next adventure? What are you doing?
Well, as long as you don't tell anyone, because
don't tell anybody, because
if you do, I got to
nobody will
kill
say
you.
anything. Yeah.
Actually, I'm planning in 2012 to do a marathon in every country of the world in 1 year. So I'm going to start off on a global expedition, starting in Australia with the marathon, and then finishing with the New York City Marathon in 2013, November 2013. And the UN recognizes 205 different countries. So I'll be going to 205 nations, and I'm working with the State Department and the UN right now to get clearance, because I want to run in Afghanistan, I want to run in North Korea, a lot of places that I found you don't just kind of under the radar, slip across the border, bang out a marathon and come on back. I mean, so that's what I got in the works.
So when you start planning out things like that, obviously logistics are a nightmare. I mean, do you change your training? Do you change what you do on a daily basis when you say, okay, now I'm going to run 200 marathons in the next 14 months? Or is your training pretty consistent?
No, I basically do a lot of, I kind of do these sort of, quasi events that I plan for. Like last year I ran the Rock and Roll Marathon, and, here in San Diego, and I got to the finish, and these guys came out, I think I ran like not fast, like a 3:10 or 3:15, and these guys were like, they were right in front of me, and he's like, I can't believe I beat Dean Karnazes, I beat the ultra marathon man. his buddy's like, yeah, but dude, you just ran down here from San Francisco. So yeah, I wanted to run the rock and roll. I said, can I have a week off? My wife gave me a hall pass, so I walked out the door and ran down here, and then ran the marathon as kind of the bookend to the whole thing. So I do a lot of stuff like that.
So when you're out doing stuff like that, when you leave the house, basically probably with a credit card, I mean, is the attraction the freedom because you don't really know what's down the road?
Yeah, I think there's someone famous said a measure.
Josh was asking where he could sign up for that.
Yeah. Where's the entry form for that one? Yeah.
There's day of race registration. Meet him in Bosnia. Bosnia is the first run.
I'll be there.
Well, you know what these guys like, because I run with my credit card and a cell phone, and if I'm in a remote area with not access to food, I order pizza and have them delivered to me. So, didn't get much better than that. But it's. I mean, there was a saying that someone said, that the measure of a man is what he can do without. And you guys are all athletes and runners. I mean, you're never more free when you're out running. I mean, you get back in your house and there's all that crud you've got sitting around, and it's like a burden. So for me, just to walk out the door with some running shoes and a pair of shorts and run to San Diego is really liberating.
So Ryan, what are the plans now for you for 2011 leading into the trials in 2012?
Well, I'm heading out to Houston for the Houston Half Marathon, where I'll get to preview the trials course. So I'm really excited to race there and get the 2011 season going. And then I'll probably do something before I run the Boston Marathon in April 18th. Any of you guys running Boston? All right.
Oh, nice.
See you guys on the starting line. So I'll run there, and then I'm not sure what I'm going to do after that. Just kind of take one marathon at a time, see how it goes, and plan from there.
So take us through Boston. I mean, you went there and you spent a lot of time training on the course. Did you gain a lot of insight being there and running the course over and over again, and how did that help you on race day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys know, like, you guys, I'm sure, have your loops at home where you train on, and you know it, like, inside and out, and you just have a familiarity with the environment, and you know the terrain and the hills, and you know exactly how to work it, and so you can run it, like, really well. And that's what I wanted to get at Boston, because I'd raced it the previous year, and really, like, racing it was, I learned a lot out there, but I was like, I still have so much more to learn, so I knew I had to go back there. So I spent about a week there in the winter time before the event, and then I went out 2.5 weeks right before the marathon and just got on the course as much as I could, and it helped a ton, because I would say I probably wasn't in as good a shape last year as I was the previous year, and yet I ran like almost a minute faster just by knowing the course better, because that course is so technical, and the Boston experience is just amazing. Like, I tell people, it's the only time like I actually feel like a rock star in the United States as a professional runner. People are, in Boston in general, it's kind of like that. It's really cool. Like, there's people, I'm out there running on the course, and they're like out there with their flip cameras taking pictures of me or honking for me and stuff. It's the only place really where I go and like get recognized like that. It's really a fun weekend.
That is pretty cool.
The only problem with going as fast as Ryan is you don't get a free Wellesley kiss. I bet he didn't stop for one of those.
No, next time.
A lot of old guys, that's the only reason we run it.
And when you dress as Elvis, my wife was actually following online, and my mile through Wellesley was 28 minutes.
But what was going on there, Bob?
I was stopping a few
Yes.
times. Yeah, that's always good. So, Ryan, we've talked a number of times about the difference between a race like Boston that is so the strategy is everything, and then a race like London where you got pace setters and you can just put your head down and go. You like both of them, but something like a London or Chicago where you can just put your head down is pretty special.
Yeah, I always like to see what's inside me and see how fast I can go. Like, that's something about running that I love and really draws me to the sport. And in the Boston Marathon, like, I went to the lead in the first mile, and you feel like you're racing the entire marathon, whereas when you're in a paced race, you can kind of fall asleep, or that's what I like to try and do for the first, at least half of the race, maybe even 20 miles, where I'm just staring at the back of the rabbit and just locking in and just trying to relax as much as I can. And you're not mentally engaged. You're just kind of zoning out, taking in the surroundings maybe, getting in your fluids, and you feel like it's very controlled. Whereas Boston, New York, races like that don't have pacemakers, you're just out there and you feel like you're scrapping the whole time. There's guys surging. You're just always on the alert, like trying to pay attention to what's going on. So it is a totally different experience. And I have to learn to race well in both of those scenarios because the Olympics is not a pace race.
Right.
And that's kind of the big deal for us.
And I love your analogy to driving in traffic. When you're doing a paced race, basically it's like you're driving from here to Mammoth and you're on that open road and you don't even remember it. All of a sudden you're just there. But when you're doing something like Boston, it's like driving from here to LA in traffic and what's this guy going to do and that guy. You're just mentally, you're stressed the entire time. That's sort of the deal.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to describe it. I don't think I said that. Maybe
yeah, you
that
did.
was
It's on the
Josh.
radio show. No, you said it, man.
Really?
I got it. Oh, yeah.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good stuff.
Dropping knowledge, dude.
Now, the other thing you said on the radio show was that challenge you put out there that actually I talked to Chris Carmichael about it last night. Tell these guys what the challenge is.
Oh, you talked to Chris about it? This
I
is
did.
news to me. This is breaking news. What I want to do is get myself, Lance Armstrong, and Michael Phelps together and do a triathlon relay because we all have our foundations. So it'd be like, to raise money for our causes, but also to put out a pretty special time for the Ironman distance. It would be pretty cool.
You're talking Kona course.
Yeah, Kona course. And, we could even challenge some of the European boys, get some of those guys out there to put on a good show for us.
They could wear their Speedos. You'd be okay with that. Whatever they want to do. So we're talking Michael Phelps doing the swim, Lance Armstrong doing the bike, you'd be doing the run. All the dollars go to charity. And how much time do you think you could take off that Ironman? Ironman course record's 8:04 right now.
I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of talking in pure ignorance because I don't really know. But what did they split on the marathon?
They do split a marathon right around 2:40. This year, Macca was 2:43.
2:43. So maybe I could, take a portion of that off the run. I don't know.
What type of portion you think? What type of portion you think?
Maybe, 35 minutes at least.
There we go. 35 minutes. That's good. All right. So, and the bike, I don't know how much fat is on the bike, but figure probably 15, 20 minutes, something like that. I don't think there's much in the swim, but yeah, I don't think it's out of line for saying hour 40, something like that. So you guys would go under 7:30. That'd be nice.
Yeah, so what did Chris say?
Well, Chris said he's going to talk to Lance.
All right, there you go.
There you go. I like that. Yeah, how about that? You guys come watch that? There you go. And Dean said he'd run the whole 140 miles. It'll be no big deal, and he'd finish the same time you guys would. Wouldn't be a big deal at all.
The next day.
The next day. So, Josh, last month you won Zappos.com Rock and Roll Vegas. This month you win Rock and Roll, P.F. Chang's Rock and Roll Arizona. So that's 2 marathons, 2 months. This guy's run 50 marathons, 50 days, 50 states. So 50 marathon wins, 50 rock and rolls, 50 in a row?
Yeah. So my goal is to win the next 50 rock and roll marathon. No, not really.
There we go. You can tweet that right now. Tweet that right now.
Vegas was interesting. I was there with Nissan's Master of the Shift program. It had been on the calendar for a long time, and a bunch of the guys from Mammoth TC were going to go run and do the half, but I was getting ready for Arizona Rock and Roll 50K. So I needed to get a long run. I pitched Terrence on the idea of actually doing the long run on the course, and he said, JC is fine, but if you come through the half faster than 75 minutes, I'm going to kill you and pull you off the course. So I could do the marathon, provided I ran with Jen, who was running the half.
Right.
And she won the women's field. And I ran with her for the majority of the first half, came through the half in 75 minutes, which is, we do a workout twice a month called a marathon simulation, where we kind of run a moderate pace, like 5:40, 5 to 6 minute pace for 10, 12 miles, and then we run marathon pace for the next 10. And so I basically used Zappos.com Vegas race as a marathon simulation. It just happened to be a marathon. So that worked out on the back half for me.
A little bit, yeah. It worked out a bit. And how tough is it? I mean, it's one thing if you're running a marathon, you're not having a bad day. There's a lot of crowds. There's places you can sort of walk off, I'm having a bad day, disappear. But when you win the marathon in Arizona, you come through the finish line, and then you're running over to a track, and basically you're the only guy out there, and there's people all around the track. It's sort of hard to disappear.
Yeah, there's no invisible button, It's like you just, I was at around 20 miles. The field was together through about 16, and then the next 4 I ran pretty hard, about 5 minute pace, and was able to get a good buffer for the marathon, which I did want to win the title. And titles are awesome because they're forever, and records are always on loan. They're borrowed. And fortunately, I'm able to borrow the American record right now. And the goal was the world mark, and we've been training for that, and it was 2:43:38 was the goal. And I knew that I had to come through the marathon in 2:17 and some change, and I was dead on. I was like 2:17:30 or something, and then crossed the line, made it over to the track, and the legs started, I could feel the fueling, and when you're running 31 miles at that pace, it's all about glycogen, just keeping your glycogen stores up and not burning through it too much. And hindsight's 20/20 now. I just I shouldn't have put the pedal to the metal so much. If maybe run some 5:10s would have been better than the 4:55s in 5 minutes I was running. And but I got to the track and my legs, I ran like a 5:08, a 5:07, and then I ran like a 5:20, and then my legs started to shake a little bit and cramp, and I was like, okay, just keep moving forward. But it was just it's a blur. You get on the track and run around the oval, and it's great for rhythm, but everyone's screaming at you, and they're screaming splits, and you're like, I'm in total stupid mode. Like, I'm trying to process, so like, that was an 81, that's not good. And I'm like, 81 times 4, okay, carry the 2. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, And so it was tough, and I just kind of kept my head down, and I was just praying that I'd be able to make it to the finish without seizing up, So it was, I needed a 63 last lap to get the record. I needed a 5 flat last mile, which is what I ran the last time I was there 2 years ago. And I ran a 5:07 last mile and a 71 last lap, so I missed the world mark by 7 seconds.
So that breaks down to how much per mile, you think?
It's like 0.25 seconds or 2.25 or something horrible like that.
Why am I not surprised that you know that?
Yeah. I'm not. Yeah, I haven't done any math or anything. It's like
I haven't done any math. Going home, where could I have found 0.25 seconds per mile?
Run a couple more tangents on the road. Not have had those 4 French fries I had like 5 days before. I don't know.
All right. Hey, I'd like to open up to a question or two before we finish up with our panel. Anybody have any questions out there? I will ask one more of my man Dean then. So Dean, you're going to be running. When will this start? Your marathons of the world.
It's going to start in November in Australia. There's actually a marathon up in Rockhampton, which is flooded out right now. But it's the next full solar eclipse is the day of the marathon, which is kind of trippy. So that'll be the first marathon. It's November 7th, 2012.
And there's how many countries right now?
205.
You know what? They're expanding a lot, too. It could be 215 by the time you start this thing.
Well, I think in the Vatican, which is only, so big, I'm going to have to run on a treadmill, actually, they're saying.
Nice. Hey, everyone, how about a big round of applause for Dean Karnazes, Josh Cox, Mr. Ryan Hall,